Welcome to Owen and Brew's Barbecue. Today we are serving up roasted Razor Crisps. I'm Matt, and today I'm joined by someone that loves to blow stuff up and also meditates, Nick.
So with the Razor Crisp, do you have to watch out for metal shavings, like while you're eating? You know,
I think they're so fried as just melted goo.
It's melted. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like when you eat the fried like cheese, when you're making a grilled cheese and there's like those little crisps afterwards.
Yeah, that actually makes me like sometimes I like it. Sometimes because I love making grilled cheeses. Everybody does. It's classic. But sometimes when you put the cheese in, it just overlaps a little bit over the bread, and then it melts, and then it comes down and hits the skillet. Like you automatically hear the cheese kind of like on the, and like to me, it's like, no, I don't want to waste the cheese. Like every little morsel I want. But
well, I was thinking of stone oven, force fired pizzas, but why not go with the Razor Crisps? So. So today we're talking about the Mandalorian, all things spoiler for is this chapter 14, the tragedy. And boy, I am so glad that I did not get spoiled on that title.
Yeah, I kept wondering what the tragedy could be, because even with the outcome, even though it's disappointing for a Mandalorian, that's not really a tragedy. I mean, Baby Yoda dying, that's a tragedy, but the Razor Crest being blown to little bitty itsy bitsy bits. Now that's a tragedy.
You can see it melting, like as its explosions coming to you. You can see how the metal is just melted goo flying at you, like in that explosion shot. I assume that the kidnapping is the tragedy because but yes, Razor. I don't know. Maybe it's a tie, but the tragedy though. Once I saw that, I think my kids and I were like, oh no. Not Baby Yoda. Like we both were kind of like anticipating.
Well, it made total sense. I mean, if something was going to happen like this, it was going to be in this episode, which I had thought, but my original thought, like I had said, a few episodes back, I thought it was going to be Boba Fett that did it. It made sense to me of like, oh, he's a bounty hunter. He probably wants his armor back, and he'll track him down. He'll steal the kid because there's still going to be money on the kid's head, so it makes total sense. But
right.
I was pleasantly surprised with this one.
Even though that I was like anticipating certain beats happening, so in my mind I had written this where the season was going to end with somehow Grogu on top of the Seeing Stone, calling out with the Force. He's kidnapped somehow. I actually described almost part of this plot to my brother as we catch up, and I felt like there would be a Jedi that would show up and basically be like, hey, I'll help you find him or whatever. And then that's how season 2 would end. Yeah. But now with this happening where it does now, I'm like, okay, there's going to be a rescue mission. They're clearly going to get baby Yoda back. And then the Jedi will show up.
Well, I don't even think a Jedi will show up because it depends on who they cast, if they even get one. Because I think the last shot we see probably will be a Jedi, but I think it will just be the back of the robe, of the brown robe. Like you'll see like a flicker, he felt something in the Force, and so that the message was received, but you won't get any kind of indication of like what Jedi it is.
This is the big thing that's driving a lot of fans and fan theories right now on the interwebs is like the who will be the Jedi that shows up. So a lot of people speculating on Luke, which I feel like we would have heard casting Luke rumors. I feel at this point.
I think we already have.
We have, but it's all been speculative based on fans, right? Like I don't think there's any.
But that's what it was. That's what it was this time last year too. I mean, I did bring this up with Ralph. So for everyone out there, I was a guest on our friend Ralph's podcast as well. This is at the very end of the podcast.
Wait! You're on another podcast?
Just a one episode thing, baby. It was just one episode.
That's what you said last year.
Yeah. Is that because I remember? So right now they're probably writing or at least close to finishing Mandalorian season 3, the writing right now, and they'll probably go into production sometime February, March of next year. Get it shot. But I remember at roughly this time last year, all the rumors going around like Rosario Dawson is campaigning to be Ahsoka Tano, and I remember like me kind of being wishy-washy about it. Like, do you want a live version of Ahsoka? Like, could she pull it off? Like, and I think that it's actually a wise decision. I don't know who's making these decisions, but if they're going to go the same route, it's because it lets the fan base kind of get this in their head for a full year to say like, oh, okay, Rosario Dawson, I'm warming up to the idea. And then we actually see her. It's already 6 months behind us that it's been shot. You know, that she's doing. Yeah. And so right now the rumor is, is that Sebastian Stan that could be playing a young Luke. And from the images, you're kind of like, I could see it. I don't know if he could capture the character, but I'm not opposed to it.
I'm really pro them. I know Chris was on here a couple, like maybe it was last week, and he was very anti the recasting of Luke. But I'm like, no, rip this Band-Aid off. Like you have to get somebody else to play Luke, at least in this middle-aged era of Luke. And I say they do it for the main original trilogy heroes. Like I kind of want them to just say like, okay, this is going to be our Leia, this is going to be our Han. And, because I feel like, and maybe you don't even have to cast Han at this point, but I feel like dancing around Luke and Leia, like the two biggest, largest influencers in the galaxy for an entire show, it just seems, I don't know. I don't want them to like, oh, we have to go all the way around this character in order to make this believable. I'd rather them just be like, no, like this is who it is. This is who we're casting for it. And we're moving forward. They've won Star Wars fans over with this show, both young, new, old, fresh, so I don't know. I mean, I'm all for it. Like, my faith is in the producers of the show at this point to make this happen. And I just don't, I don't want it to become the Luke and Mando show, but if the Mandalorian is going to continue to, traverse the galaxy, like meeting all of these different people as if he was Forrest Gump, then by all means, like, let's see him, at least interact with these characters on some level. I mean, even getting a hologram of Leia, giving galactic news or information about something big that's happened, like that would be great. Like we know that at some point rumors come out and she's exposed as being the daughter of Darth Vader. Like it would be cool to kind of see that play out in the background, like things that have been brought up in books. And they are clearly not shying away from anything that's been in Legends at this point, which is great. And they're also like incorporating all of the stuff that's current canon. So, anyway, those are my thoughts about that.
Yeah. You wonder if he could do it though, more than just a couple of cameos. Cause he does have, the Falcon and, the Winter Soldier is their show on Disney Plus.
Right.
I mean, I know that's only like a certain few months that they'll shoot that, and he could probably fit in other places. But for an actual series, I mean, I think a cameo would be fine. But
yeah, I mean, and I don't want Luke to overshadow Grogu or
Yeah, I don't either.
Like but I feel like just as Ahsoka came in on that episode, and when we all kind of understood, like, well, she's got her own adventure. She's doing her own thing. Like, let her do her own thing. So, right. So what was your initial reaction to this episode?
I was pleasantly surprised. I really was, because I thought last episode was going to be the peak of the season with Filoni writing and directing. And I knew we were going to probably get Ahsoka in that episode. And I thought, okay, we'll have 2 downer episodes and then a nice finish. And so I really went into this episode thinking, oh, it'll just be like some random thing that happens. And I was really pleasantly surprised. I mean, it was a short episode and mostly action, but it was good. Every bit about it was good. I liked, just all the little humor. I even liked the little humor in it. Like, okay, we got to fly with the windows down, kid. I mean, it's like a lot of just good little things in it. And you saw a lot of nice little Easter eggs, placed here and there that were good.
The way I described it, because, my brother and I, we text back and forth and talk about the show as I've told you. And it dawned on me, like with this episode, my brother is a huge Boba Fett fan. just huge Boba Fett fan, and I encouraged him to watch this season from the get-go. As with this episode, I texted him that morning, watch this episode. It's only 30 minutes, but it will feel like an hour.
Yeah.
And of course he crammed watching it in twice before he had to go to work, and he was just like, thanks, like, this is awesome, and he said to not be so crude, but he said something like about having like a Star Wars boner.
Right.
If that's possible. To bring it back to the family side of things, what's really cool though, is, we're watching this episode. I'm watching it with my kids, and they're like, "Oh, Uncle Kyle's gonna love this," Just as my brother also was just like, "Oh, I bet Maggie really liked, that episode with Ahsoka." The way that this show is working and firing on all engines, I feel like it's pulling in all of these Star Wars fans, where it's like it is a family thing. Like, okay, yeah, this episode wasn't for you, but the next one will be. Or this one's for you, or this one has like a little something. So it's cool how it's pulling those elements together, where it's like, yeah, we're a Star Wars family, and we're all like excited about these different aspects. And I too pleasantly surprised Boba Fett being one of those characters that, like how can you get past him? He's like has a huge presence, and it was amazing what they did with a character who has had so little screen time in the original trilogy, heralded as a god amongst some fans. And in this episode, we actually got to see why he was so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things like we've already talked about, especially in the first episode, how from the original trilogy, there were such limitations to what could be shown and done in a practical sense. And so we saw the rocket get fired. The first episode, we saw the aiming, the targeting system coming down from the helmet. We saw so many cool things. And in this episode, we got to see actually Boba Fett use these things again. And not only did we get to see him use those things, we got to see him use the most obscure thing that was put on the toy that we never thought would ever use, which is the knee rockets. The knee rockets were such the weirdest thing that you're like, what the hell you got knee rockets for? And they actually, talk about having a Star Wars boner. It's like little things like that where you're just like, you don't ever expect something like that to ever be used or seen. And then they did. They remembered just for him just to slam his leg down and go, all right, and they fire off. I was like,
It's really amazing, like all of the little moments that they crafted in and crammed into this episode, and hats off to Robert Rodriguez for pulling in like such an action and explosive episode, pulling it off, and still having those like little beats or those moments, like you said, like the knee rockets. Or I liked that we got to see Boba Fett fight as Boba Fett without the armor first. It was almost like this moment where he had to earn it for us before he got it. And I liked how they played his character as like, there were moments where you're like, I don't know if he's stable. Right. And you're like, I don't know if he's a good guy. I don't know if he's a bad guy. And you're still left kind of like, he's got the crazy in his eye, which hats off again to Momo Morrison for like playing it that way. Like the way he plays those eye looks and like, like that just intensity and that fire. It's really great. Like if we see him play, Rex,
oh yeah, how would he do it? Yeah.
How would he do it, and how that nuance would really come through?
From being very serious and stern to almost being jolly-go-lucky kind of in a way. Yeah, it would. Yeah, that'd be very different. And I'd welcome that. I think. Yeah.
It would be really cool, and if we don't get it this season, like it would be really. With Filoni at that, in the back, being like, "Hey, Fav, why don't we put, like it'd be nice, even if we don't get Rex. I think it would be really cool if we see an old clone and get to see the range of what might be between, how Boba Fett is as a character."
Since you mentioned the gaffy stick, though, I'm going to go ahead and throw out like a good meaty theory here. Because as soon as I saw him with the gaffy stick and really fighting with the gaffy stick, I felt this was a red herring, like immediately. Because it makes total sense. Like now that he's fighting with the gaffy stick, and what do they show? The one thing other than the gear shifter, what did they pull from the rubble? the Beskar staff.
Right.
So are we going to see Boba Fett train the Mandalorian in how to use this staff? Because this is going to be how the Mandalorian actually is going to fight Grief Karga. Because, sorry.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Moff Gideon.
Gideon.
It's easy to get those two.
Yeah, because, the Beskar has to be able to defend against the Darksaber. So it's like he has to be trained in how to use this. So it's like it makes total sense for this to happen.
I like that you mentioned this. In my notes here, I have just written the way Boba Fett looks at Mando when he picks up that staff. When the Mandalorian is looking through the wreckage and he picks up that staff, I love that. I love how he's looking, because he looks at him almost with an earnest, I don't know, I don't know, and maybe I'm projecting, but there was just this moment where I feel like he's looking at him as an equal or as someone that's now that's a true Mandalorian. He's almost kind of looking at him with respect or something like that. Or there's a little exchange there that I really appreciated. It was just conveyed, So I know we're kind of jumping around, but I mean, there's there's pretty much, I mean, the plot of the whole story is pretty. In some ways, it's pretty simple because it all takes place on one planet. Get
to Rock, fight, kid kidnapped. It's that's the plot.
Yeah.
But I did just say early in the episode, I liked how they continued on with this naiveness of the Mandalorian and all the things he says to the kid of does this look Jedi to you? Don't you want what else did he write?
He says, don't you want to learn these Force things or something?
Yeah. Here's the magic rock. And he doesn't say quite, is there an on switch? But that's how I took it. It's he puts him in do I need to turn this thing on? It's a rock. Come on. But it just things like that made me laugh of just because he doesn't understand any of it. And
he mentions the nice lady said that,
the nice lady, right?
He refers to Ahsoka as that, or just the fact that he practices with the Force with him, and I think it's building up a little bit more of that emotion, which, I don't think it was really conveyed in the episode with Ahsoka where he was getting Grogu ready to give him up. Mm-hmm. I understood that a little bit more the second time, and maybe the music swells can kind of, give you that little indication, but there is a little bit of the Mandalorian who's kind of coming to terms with his emotional attachment to Grogu. And this moment of, I'm going to take you to where you need to go, but along the way, of course, I'm going to fall in love with you as my own child. I mean, that's what's happening.
Right.
Even Ahsoka notices it, that it's mutual. So, I realize that at some point, and I don't know what character's going to say it, but it's just you two make a good team. You are the family, whatever that moment is. But I mean, I feel like that the show is these two.
It is these two. And I don't see them. I mean, I can't see the Mandalorian going past 4 seasons, really. Mm-hmm. But that's what I say. I mean, it's the wolf and the cub, and I can't see them ever really splitting him up. And it's the same as with the armor, giving him the Mudhorn as his sigil. It's there's a bond here between the two. You need one another in order to really be successful. And I mean, there might be a season where they're apart for a few episodes, but I think in the end they'll still come back together.
Yeah. I like that moment where he says, they've been hitting us over the head with it, the Star Wars cuss word, but he was like, "Dank Ferric," he's and I actually kind of liked how the delivery with this one, because he was just "Oh man, you're right," and then Baby Yoda echoes it, and he's like, "No, I'm not bad." So yeah, I like that little kind of opener where we're getting a little bit of that conversation. When they come into Tython, and I know you're familiar with Tython from the Dawn of the Jedi series. It's something that I think you've read that book.
I didn't read the actual book with the brother and sister. I read the comic book series.
The comic book, yes.
Yeah.
And I think I've read parts of the comic book series, but I've read the book. So we kind of like fill in the gaps there. But Tython has existed in Jedi lore for a long time. There's 2 moons, a light side and a dark side. We didn't see those from space, oddly enough, that they didn't decide to put those in there. But I think in my mind, in your mind, you were probably thinking, especially since you saw the comic book, you're expecting to see one of those Jedi structures from the comic book. And so when we see the rock outcropping, I was like, oh, it's like a little anticlimactic there.
Right. Like, it has been millennium, like long time.
Yeah. I mean, this is like really, there's a long period of time. Like, we're talking like what tens of thousands of years between like the time in which the early Jedi were there, I believe.
Yeah, at least 40,000 or more.
Yeah. I want to say it was like when I was looking it up. It goes back a long ways, we'll just say.
Yeah.
What I was thinking, though, was that from that comic series and those Dawn of the Jedi series, I was thinking about they had that well or that like open chasm that went to the core of the earth, if I remember correctly. And I was thinking about that in terms of that temple and the fact that it's got this ball sitting on top of it. And if that's an old well, if that's an old chute that goes towards the center of this planet, you're basically sitting on top of that, like tapping into that planet's energy. And that it's almost kind of like it's a lighthouse, using the planet's energy to kind of like project through the whatever Jedi's sitting there. That's kind of how I took it to mean. And I'm only like kind of connecting the dots from what I'd seen in the comics and the book.
Could be. I mean, those are no longer canon, sadly, but I like where your head's at. That's an interesting thought for sure.
Well, I mean, if it's an old place, I mean, this could be in ruins, those structures could have been put up afterwards, or maybe it was sealed at some point because the energy was too powerful. Dark Jedi's got a hold of it and tried to release it or something, but they sealed it up, and that cork is basically what we're seeing him sit on. So that was my thought on it. So, you mentioned about like the whole, like, we got to go the rest of the way with the windows down. I liked this setup too, because it also kind of set up what happens later. The fact that there's a little bit of separation there, that they have to go up to the rock, that it's not, you can't just like sit down, park, walk out,
Right. Well, I mean, go ahead.
No, I just was going to say half of Star Wars wouldn't exist because like if people just landed right where they need to go.
Right.
like the AT-ATs of the Empire.
Well, I mean, and there's almost, like I said, there's some foreshadowing and things. It's like when they finally meet up with Boba Fett and Ferrick.
Fennec?
Fennec. Like he tells him to take off the jetpack. And this is such a foreshadowing. It's like, because if he hadn't taken it off, he could have easily it just launched back up to the top of the hill.
And he gets spooked once he sees the Imperial shuttle coming down. He should have just grabbed it. He had that remote control thing. We'd seen him use the remote control of the jetpack. Like, why didn't he use that? Like, there's certain things that you're like, oh man, like you're not thinking, you weren't, he's a little bit caught off guard. When he puts Baby Yoda on that block, there is a blue butterfly that appears. I know it's an odd thing to pull.
No, I mean, I like that where your thoughts are going, because I kept thinking, had we seen a butterfly before? And I thought we had at some point. Like, it might not have, or maybe I'm thinking of some other episode or something.
I'm gonna pull it in because I know you've read the comic book, but there's the Vader comic book in which Anakin Skywalker, well, as Vader, Darth Vader, is meditating. So Darth Vader is meditating, and you see a comic sequence in which he's basically like suitless. He's just a form meditating, and and there's all of this like weird writing and whatever, and these electric blue butterflies come to him. Everything's like red and black. And he's like in pain and whatever, but these blue butterflies come to him, and it's basically a symbol of the light side of the Force coming to Anakin in that moment. And then this moment, obviously, like, Grogu is, connecting with the light side of the Force, touching the butterflies, these blue butterflies. So that was kind of it's a very deep kind of cut there, but, I was like, oh, there's something there. So, whether they intended to or not, it works. So,
yeah, I thought it was an interesting little touch there. Did it make him feel at ease? Because you wonder if it hadn't have shown up, would he just have sat there looking at Mando, kind of going like, oh,
Yeah.
and then, but that butterfly made him kind of be distracted enough to where he felt calm, and then.
And like I said, the light side of the Force, like the light
Right.
side of the Force coming to him, kind of, allowing him to relax and connect. And when you see Grogu go into meditation, he's doing
Exactly.
the finger touching the thumb in a circle, and I just like that little subtle touch, So
true Zen mode. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's also another like aspect to this, which they did a really nice job with the audio. Every time the Mandalorian is talking to Grogu, and Grogu is in that meditative state with that force shield kind of around him, they do this sound effect where the voice sounds different. So as he's talking to him, like it's just a little distorted, but you're hearing it from Grogu's point of view, like, "Oh, good, we're gonna get Grogu," like
right.
That little distortion. So little things, nice though. So yeah, Baby Yoda's up there, reaches out, becomes a beacon for a lighthouse. Boba Fett shows up, or we see Slave One.
Yeah, this was one of those things that I was really happy that I saw Slave One, but it's also one of those reasoning in my head went, wait a minute here. He crawls out of the Sarlacc pit, and I'm assuming at this point, probably from just near death, and maybe he's just laying in the desert, that the Jawas steal his armor. But yet
Correct. Somehow
Slave One has just been chilling in a parking lot somewhere this whole time.
Okay, so this brings up probably the biggest what happened to Boba Fett in that period of time. We still don't know that timeline.
Right.
And I'm with you on the Jawas steal his armor off of his body. He's laying there in the desert, unconscious, half dead from somehow getting out of the Sarlacc. We don't know how. Jawas steal his armor. He's left for dead. Tusken Raiders come by, see him in the sand. They save him. That's why he's familiar with a gaffy stick. He spends the next 3 years, let's say, with the Tusken Raiders, not really knowing who he is.
Okay.
A little bit of amnesia there, not knowing who he is, where he came from. He's in that Sarlacc pit for a while.
Right.
Like I'm thinking he's got some Sarlacc, time in there. It wasn't just like, boom, fell in, got right back out. All right, so now he's with the Tusken Raiders. Perhaps he so this is where it doesn't quite add up, because the way I had understood it is that he was with the Tusken Raiders. He actually sees the armor being worn by
it brings
it jogs the memory, and he's like, oh yeah, that's me. But it doesn't make sense as to why he would save Fennec.
Well, I mean, maybe he just, we've talked about life debts before. Maybe he really does have a new outlook on life because, his life was saved and he was taught. Because, it's kind of like we've said, the Sand People / Tusken Raiders are the Native Americans of Tatooine. So maybe he learned more of a respect for life type thing, and so he's kind of seen his error of his way. So if he can save a life, he will, he owes that because someone saved his life. So now he's going to save this life.
Perhaps it just the saving of her. I mean, I guess that works, but then okay, he saves her, but then when does he see the armor? When does he get his memory jogged?
Well, that's
if he does know who he is, why wouldn't he go to Slave? So this is my other thought. He's got Slave One. In the Slave One, he's got basically a tracker on his suit.
Right.
Okay, so that adds up. So if he can get to Slave One, he can track his suit. Why wouldn't he just go and get it?
See, now you're just making my thoughts, the gears turn even more. See, that's the thing. Because most likely Slave One was parked at Jabba's palace.
Correct.
And so it's is it just been chilling there for 7 years? or 5 years. You know, that's what I mean. Like, I mean, we know Jabba's dead, so I mean, did they just desert the palace and it's just
why wouldn't Jawas strip it? I mean, Jawas can strip a Razor Crest and nothing flat, right? Like, why would they strip the Slave One unless it's got like electrified, like shock, you know, like like
one heck of a car alarm. Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. So he's got a really sweet tape deck in there.
It's gonna be Spaceballs too, yeah, or something. Yeah, some weird alarm system on the.
My brain goes in different places. I'm thinking of The Big Lebowski and how the cops are like, "Yeah, you're never going to see that Credence again."
Yeah, the Credence, or the Credence, yeah. But going back to Fennec though, like that was another thing that got the mind just constantly turning. Is like, you know, when I'm happy that she's alive.
I figured that you would be happy.
That's something that, you know, I'd spoken up at least twice about, going like, what a waste of a good character. Like, you know, there's so much potential there. And then to bring her back made me really happy to hear her voice. Like, all right, of course they did spoil us though in the previews. Yeah, I was like, you know.
It's like we not learned anything from Lost, people.
Right.
Like we're like, seriously, studio execs, you should have learned this from Lost. Lost fans hate the little preview and this one you couldn't get past it. It was like
it's the first thing you see.
It wasn't even a previously on. It was like, we're going to show you this clip, and then we're going to do the previously on, and it's like, okay, Disney Plus, get your skip thing figured out, and
Dank Ferret.
Yeah, Dank Ferret. We're just freaking frustrated.
So when you know, when he basically says, like, you know, you were dead, and then she exposes her stomach. Yeah. So I have two thoughts immediately. One's the practical one. Actually, they're both practical thoughts, really. It's like, one, so she got the Darth Vader treatment, but how much of her now is machine? Like, is it just her midsection? And if that's true, how do they connect her legs back again? You know, it's like all this stuff. And then
so my only understanding there is that she was shot in the belly.
Yeah.
So that would have been the thing that would have been like, had to have been replaced. And is Boba Fett that good of a medic?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm not like, I'm in for a penny, in for a pound with this Boba Fett hooking up with Fennec, you know, Shand. I can't pronounce her last name.
I just wrote down Fennec. Yeah.
But I love the pairing of them. Like, this is a cool duo. You know, and for everybody that thought that it was Boba Fett before, and if I was the one that was basically like, no, that's too easy. Well, guess what?
It's the Spurs, man. The Spurs is what gave it away.
This show is just like straight up. This is what you get. There's no. Now, I will say that I still feel like they can do a little bit of twist with Boba Fett still.
Oh, no doubt.
When going back and I was thinking about this, because I was like, how did he find them so quickly?
Yeah, that was because I had written that down in my first viewing. It was like, you know, how did Boba Fett find him? You know, like, you're like, how did he track him? How did he get him there? And then, you know, he says that's the first thing you hear is like, I've been tracking you for a while, Mandalorian. And you're like, how? Like, how?
Right.
So we get that there's a tracker on the Razor Crest, but you didn't put it there. So it's like, how did you find him?
Yeah. It's kind of how, like, we put a tracker in this show, and it's called a commercial break. We throw it in there, and every now and then it hits. Okay, so my immediate thought was, okay, he's working for the Empire. This is a whole total, like, you know, Empire Strikes Back double cross. But he legitimately is like, they're back. Like, he's a bit freaked out. Like, I take it for he's a man of his word now in my book.
Right.
He's protecting Grogu. So, you know, like, they took a character who, if you hated him before, you liked him because he was, like, fighting for Grogu. So, like, I mean, seriously, like, the stormtrooper that actually, like, stuns Baby Yoda and puts him to sleep at the very end. Mm-hmm. We just better hope that person was not played by, like, Jason Sudeikis, you know, or somebody else famous, because I seriously was like wanted to punch that stormtrooper. All of the stormtroopers that I
stun gun, he's fine. I actually, I have more sympathy for him than the guy who put him in shackles.
Oh,
because to see Baby Yoda in those little handcuffs, it's just like, man, that's just mean.
My thought was where did they get baby handcuffs?
Exactly.
Like
it's so true.
Like,
look.
So there's only a couple creatures that would fit this building. Like we've got Babu Freak.
Yeah.
Baby Yoda, maybe an Ognot, like a child Ognot,
yeah.
I guess. A Jawa? Like, when did they break out that size? They're like, well, we got the small, the extra small, and the extra, extra small. Like,
I'm just thinking of the guy who was commissioned to make them. Like,
yeah, no kidding. Like,
what? You want like these little bitty, like, what are you locking up? This small that requires it, like.
He quit the Empire and was executed shortly after that.
Probably.
Okay, so we're getting sidetracked about like all of the stormtrooper action, but
I did want to say the second point about Fennec.
Yeah.
So the other thing was that after she exposes her stomach, which makes sense, she's showing him how she survived.
Yeah.
The other thought was like, who would make a garment like that? Like, because like I'm sitting there like, wait, you can just expose all of your internals like that? It's like you're doing a lot of jumping around and barrels and all these things like that. It's like, aren't you going to get dirt inside your guts now?
Like, that's why you have to open it up to clean it out. She probably takes an air hose, just goes, blows out on all of the dirt.
So how does she take a bath now? It's like, does she take like a half oil bath, half a regular bath? Like, wouldn't you get? I don't know. Like, what's going on here?
We can talk after the show about other aspects
of just crazy thoughts.
I do. I think there's a certain aspect of this, Nick, that we're missing in the fact that this is just good Star Wars. Like, we don't need to know how this works, but all of a sudden she's half bionic. She survived, and like, this is cool, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I was very happy that she made it. I'm looking forward to next couple episodes because I mean it should be pretty neat because I'm assuming this next episode is going to be mostly a jailbreak. I don't understand why they really need him, other than just to bring back another character. Because
you mean the sharpshooter?
The sharpshooter. Other than like he was a ex-Imperial, maybe it's the only Imperial he knows. But it's like, what value can he really bring, other than some little bit of knowledge?
Yeah, I'm feeling also slightly slighted. Because, I wanted the Mithril to have some kind of Imperial access. I wanted him to be like the code breaker that we needed. But no, it's got to be Ben Burr.
It's because you wanted to see more years get knocked off his sentence.
I just was anticipating that one character that he brought in on a bounty he was gonna end up meeting him. I guess that was my whole thing. Like as a plot point. It makes sense. It's like, oh yeah, the enemy that. Your enemy is now your friend kind of storyline. So, and how is he going to get the sharpshooter to like actually even listen to him? I mean, that guy hates him.
Well, it'd break him out of prison. So, I mean, you got to owe him something. Maybe. I mean, he could be. I'm assuming he's going to be the person who dies to prove the situation is serious.
I just don't want a jailbreak to have another jailbreak. Like how many jailbreaks? It's like an Inception, moment. Then so. Look, I've liked what they've done so far. So, the fact that they were able to bring Boba Fett back and I enjoyed him, I trust that, I don't know, we can have 2 jailbreaks, I guess. So I think it would be cool if they do go to a rebel prison,
he's doing hard labor. So, he might not actually be in a prison. He could.
Is that what it said?
Did I miss that? Yeah, it says, let me find it. Just give me 1 second. Here we go. He's serving 50 years in the Carthon chop fields.
Wow. Okay.
So I assume that's a hard labor camp.
All right. I don't know if we'll ever see it in this show, but in the comics, they established that there is a prison that's close to a star, basically, and it's like where they keep their high level Imperial like prisoners essentially. So it's like a rebel prison. But I love the idea of like having this like ship.
There's no direct route to it. Like you have to like do different. I think That might have been another story, but I remember reading like how it's in the core worlds, and like you can't get to it directly. You have to like do all these very specific things to get to it, otherwise you'll burn up. Yeah.
Well, that's something about Tython is that it's a core world.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been in the outer rim, for a long time. But if he's going to Tython, then it's a core world. It's kind of odd, because for the most part we're supposed to be out in the outer reaches, and that. The idea that he would go from way, way, way out here to the core world, it's like, I don't know. It'd be like if everybody was hanging out in North America and all of these travels, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, we got to go to Madagascar.
Why not?
I'm not saying it is a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's really far away. So, okay, so we get Boba Fett action. I love the, I don't know, they got their Jango Fett quote with my Luke quote. I love that moment.
Oh yeah.
How awesome was that?
Slightly different words, but yeah, because in the movie it's universe and in this one it's galaxy. But
yeah,
just a simple man making way through the galaxy. Yeah, exactly. You have a Luke quote. You had something.
Yeah. Like my father before me.
Like my father before you.
I thought it was a really great way to introduce Boba Fett because he's a man of few words up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And that was always, and I think it's something we talked about, like, how are they going to do Boba Fett? Like, we can't have like a long dialogue with him. It's got to be short, simple, sweet,
Right.
And so as they were introducing him and those were his first couple words, I think there were a few other things that he said to him first, I've been tracking you, are you a Jedi? Like all of that interaction, but, still solid stuff, dialogue wise.
And I've liked, because I know we've talked about this. That was one of my concerns with bringing Boba Fett back is how they did it. Because if they just want to guns out, like he's Boba Fett, same way he was in Empire and Jedi, with the armor and like, oh, I'm here to challenge you, blah, 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 I would not have liked it at all. And I think this is done in a very nice and subtle way to show that he's had some history. And, it shows a lot of potential character development.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like character growth, character development. It's like it's moved beyond just this one dimensional. This is who we know Boba Fett as. Like it goes deeper than that. So hopefully, for those other Star Wars fans that might also be like, man, Boba Fett. So I know you have your notes there. And I guess it's funny because like one of my notes is knee pad rocket darts as well.
Right. I liked a lot of things about this whole fight sequence. Like I liked the gaffy stick to the stormtrooper helmet, just crushing it. I was like, that's so cool, And of course, it goes back to the thought of like, why do stormtroopers even bother to wear armor? It's like because it seems like anything will take them down. I also liked the Fennec, with the repeater rifle and all that, and very much a Raiders of the Lost Ark, her pushing the boulder.
Oh yeah,
coming down and
crushing that. And then like in watching those stormtroopers get like destroyed as it comes down,
right?
And how cool was that one shot? I mean, like I'm waiting for the fan art, but that moment where she's jumping backwards off the rock,
right,
shooting. Oh, I love that. This is so cool. Yeah, and then she drops down and then immediately shoots again. Like it's not just like a one shot thing. It's just like the whole sequence there.
Yeah. Well, they didn't show you is that there was a pad there on the ground when she did that to land on, and then they cut and then they put it. Yeah.
No, I don't want to think about that. So she's a total BA.
Yeah, I was actually because I was so looking forward to Dark Troopers that I was crushed a little bit because when the first transport shows up, I'm like, oh yeah, here we go, some dark troopers. Oh, the stormtroopers. And then the second transport shows up, like, okay, now we got the first wave. Now here comes the oh my god wave, and then there's more stormtroopers.
I was the same way. I was kind of the same way. I was just like, here we go. This is it. I did like the play off of the troop transport and how we got the one, he fires the rocket and it lands and, both. It's like a 2-for-1, it's like if you're.
Yeah.
bowling.
And I like that it wasn't, and it wasn't even a joke. Yeah, right. You're right with the bowl. Yeah, that is a good analogy. Yeah. But I like that how, like, it wasn't even meant to be a joke. I mean, it was a joke what he says to him, but it was true. because you see in the targeting system, he actually is aiming for the lower one, and then the rocket hits the upper one, and he's like, "Good shot." He's like, "I was aiming for the other one." Yeah, he was. But it's great.
And just that shot of Boba Fett turning as the explosions in the background, so good, so good. I mean, I even like the fact that like we can just accept the fact that like he's older, he's a little bit more rounder, you know, like the vest doesn't quite fit him quite the same way, but whatever, works.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Well, I mean. That's actually something I said to Ralph. I'm not sure while recording or not, but I really was kind of hoping, and maybe we'll get it. I was hoping that Jeremy Bulloch would have been in this episode, like just as a cameo. Because like he could have been like an Imperial officer, like on the troop transport, like just like lowering the gate or something, you know, just to show, you know, here's the original Boba Fett, you know.
I hope that it's a little bit even more like sincere, like a passing or a saving, or like, hey, go this way or something like that. Like it could be a villager or, you know, a bartender, somebody that like kind of passes along and helps him. But it would be nice to have a little cameo.
Yeah, or even have him in another set of armor, you know, with his helmet off. Like when they get, you know, it didn't have to be this season. It could be in another season, like him just sitting around with other Mandalorians with his helmet off and like, there's Jeremy Bulloch, you know, like.
That would be a nice nod too, just to know like, okay, he was like, you know, but, So we have all of this ground action that happens, and the whole time, of course, the Mandalorian's trying to get Grogu, who is just locked in. Like seriously, it's like when your kids are playing games and you're just like, come on,
right?
We have to go now. Like it was so dad to child, you know, like, and then, my kids just love the fact that he just kept getting blasted back, you know?
Yeah. I mean, cause I assume it was just pure energy, you know, and I probably Baby Yoda, Grogu didn't even wasn't probably not even aware he was even there. You know,
he was just totally tapped in. I'm curious. It hasn't really quite been the style of the show, except for when the Mandalorian was getting his armor, we'd see flashbacks. But I'm curious, will we ever see a Grogu at the Jedi Temple? All of the funny memes that came out last week about Grogu hiding, you know.
Yeah, here is another theory I have that. We've kind of skated around it a little bit, but this is finally like percolating to the top, because I love foreshadowing and things that are right in your face, but you don't see it.
You mean the Death Star?
The Death Star, yeah, not necessarily, but I think Starkiller Base is more realistic.
Oh,
and the fact that I think, you know, because like Ahsoka said, you know, he remembers this, but then he's kind of lost in time for a number of years. So I assume he's probably in some kind of Imperial Research Center, and he's might even like kind of like how we saw in Episode 2. You saw all the plans of the Death Star there. Yeah. He might be looking at the plans for Starkiller Base, and that's why he's so fascinated with the gear shifter. Is that it looks just like it?
See, my thought was that he was imprisoned in the Death Star, and
that could be
it looks like the Death Star to him, you know. So yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. Like that, it would be cool if the gear shifter had this other meaning that we haven't seen yet. You know, I like the fact that at least for the 2 seasons now, it's a symbol of their friendship and their bond. Mm-hmm. You know, but it would be interesting if it goes even deeper than that.
There's a whole car market out there that people are, you know, like, get the Baby Yoda gear shifter.
Oh my gosh! Hey, if they can have blue macaroons, why not?
Yeah, for real. For $50 a sleeve.
Yeah,
yeah, you'll mind.
Well,
there's another. Well, we kind of mentioned it, but like, you know, so the Dark Troopers finally get launched.
Yes.
They come down and they sweep up Baby Yoda back up into space. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was a little bit of a letdown because I really wanted more, but I'll take it. As long as
you mean with the Dark Troopers?
With the Dark Troopers, yeah, because I really want to see these things in. I don't want them just to go down, you know, once they take a blaster shot or something. Mm-hmm. Like, I really want them to be an admirable force, you know.
I'm wondering too if they're saving the budget for them for these last two. I mean, clearly they don't spare any expense on the show, but I'm, just kind of wondering, like, will we see them more in action? Like just in the next couple episodes. I like the visual of them coming down at the angle, to the temple. I was a little, I don't know, I was like, oh yeah, they look okay. Maybe I wanted more. So
yeah.
Why
well,
it
was very Iron Man.
Maybe that's it. Yeah. Favreau can't get away from that.
Right. And there was even an Iron Man line in there, if you didn't catch it.
I didn't hear.
Yeah. So basically when Boba Fett is following up into space or into the atmosphere and he says, I'll do a loose follow. That's an exact quote from Iron Man.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. I thought that was an odd, even when I rewatched it, I was like, that's an odd line for some reason.
Yeah.
Boba Fett's chain code. God bless Star Wars fans out there. Seriously.
Yeah. I saw that too. Yeah,
you don't even have to do the heavy lifting here. It says Boba Fett, Father Fett, mentor, Jaster Morrell is mentioned. So Jaster Morrell is someone who basically took in Jango Fett and saved Jango Fett. So that is kind of like why Jango Fett is a foundling. And this was something that was part of Legends and part of a Jango Fett comic book. I believe the Jaster Morrell or Morrell. I think it's like spelled Mereel. Others can look up more of this on Wikipedia if you'd like to. But I doubt that we're going to see any more of this. But it's interesting that's kind of laying the groundwork. If there is a quote unquote spin-off series, I don't know how many spin-off series we're going to get, but apparently Disney did announce that we're supposed to find out, I think in the next couple weeks, some of the projects and plans that they have for Marvel and Star Wars coming up in the next couple of years. So I think we're supposed to get some news, I think probably within the next couple of weeks. So that might be exciting or at least tantalizing as The Mandalorian is finishing, that we're going to get these like little nuggets of like, okay, Kenobi's coming in this year. We're going to get this. We're going to get this.
Finally get episode 7, 8, 9, maybe?
More like maybe knowing a little bit more about the mystery movie that's being made. So by Waititi. It's
right, yeah.
He's written it, or he has been writing it. So I'm kind of curious, even if we just get a paragraph or a sentence about what it would be about, that would be great.
Mm-hmm. And he's such a different director, and that I know it'll be good no matter what it is, but he always has this comedy always mixed in with seriousness. And so you kind of wonder, will he take it a little too far, or will it just be perfect,
There's one other aspect, and I know we've talked about it probably about The Mandalorian, but I'm just loving the different directors, and we're starting to really see their styles come through. I mean, as we look through this season alone, like some of the feels that they, this one definitely had a Robert Rodriguez feel to it. And I liked that. It was just like, it was a little grittier, like the action sequences and just like how things were shot and lined up. Like, I like that it's bending it to like feel like, oh yeah, this is Star Wars, but this is through their vision, through their angle. And I like that. I don't always need it to be George Lucas vision,
right.
And I like the change up, and the different flavors that we're getting.
I mean, it's like, like sometimes you get the swipes and sometimes you don't,
Yeah, totally. So, and we can always go back to it. You can always play those beats. The other little trivia note that I had here was there's on the ship, on the Star Destroyer, but it's not a Star Destroyer.
Cruiser, yeah.
Cruiser, thank you. There's an electronic sonar sound that is played. I haven't gone back to listen to it, but it is from Star Trek, the original series.
Oh,
so This is an interesting thing because I don't think we've ever had a Star Trek nod in Star Wars, have we?
I'm sure there probably has been at least one, but I can't bring it
There's
to
not
mind.
a lot. There is not a lot. Like, I mean, you'd be hard pressed. It's not. They are aware of each other, but it's not like the Beatles and the Stones. They're not hanging out that much.
Well, they're two different completely times, two different universes. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, totally. So, but anyway, I just thought it was interesting to note, though, that there was a Star Trek reference, though, in this episode. Yeah.
I didn't catch it. So, and then we now that Boba Fett gets his armor back and everything else, you see the next scene. The Slave One goes back and meet it with Cara Dune because he wants to get some information about the whereabouts of Miggs Mayfield, like we've already said. The sharpshooter from the prison break last season. This is something though that, after thinking about it, I kind of regretted the Razor Crest being blown up just for one reason. It was like, well, if you're going to go ahead and get Miggs, wouldn't it help to have Zero there as well? Because he's the smart droid, but he's blown up, because he was inside the Razor Crest. You're like, wouldn't that have made sense to have Zero as well?
He's also lost his cool, staff, his pulse staff. That was in there too.
Yeah,
that's gone. So we barely knew ye. You blew up Jedi's or Jedi's. You blew up Jawas, and that was it. The pulse rifle,
Yeah, the pulse rifle. Yeah.
I mean, we get to see it. Shocking. We get to see it used
one.
Season, but other than that, just would have liked that to survive. That scene where they're landing on Navarro, really great, and I know I've said this before, but really great special effects. Like seeing the dust fly off of like the Slave One as it lands. Like, I mean, we're given these things and we don't think anything of them. But when I go back and I rewatch some of those things, I'm like, wow, that looks really good. Like the level of special effects that they're getting. We find out that Cara Dune has become a marshal.
Still
like,
out.
In the New Republic.
In the New Republic,
so,
yeah.
She's not just a marshal on Navarro, but she is a marshal in the New Republic, and she's kind of got that no, this is my job now. These stripes don't lie.
She's a joiner now.
But that line though, when he's like, I mean, you know how she is. It's just like when he says they got the kid.
Yeah. It's like, then all the rules go out the window now. Never mind.
Totally.
Everything I just said, just forget it.
Oh yeah, she also sells that just that look that she gets in her eye
okay, yeah. So I got you.
I like that.
Nobody puts baby in a holding cell.
Yeah. Speaking of the holding cell, this is probably like the weirdest, both funny and disturbing scenes. Right.
I really liked it.
I liked it. I just was like, to me, it just was like. At first I thought he was making them fight, like he was almost controlling them. Like he's actually, like puppets. Yeah, I was just like, oh, maybe it was like, but he's force choking.
He's just torturing them. Well, I mean, I don't think he started choking them until the end. But the first he's just kind of slamming them around the room, and like making them tired. Yeah, then he starts choking them, which I thought was really surprising with kind of the backlash that in some of these articles. That's how you can tell on Facebook that a lot of people don't know what the hell they're talking about. How like it just shows that Baby Yoda is really prone to the dark side of the Force. It's like, dude, did you forget that Luke force choked people too? Like, I mean, yeah, you don't want Baby Yoda choking people, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
Sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm not gonna finish that, but yes, for sure. I don't know. I mean, look, if people are going to be so knee jerk about this, then just wait until the whole season is out and binge the whole thing. And guess what? You're not going to find anything wrong. You're going to move past all of those little things. Yeah. That you spent all week obsessing over. And oh, by the way, we do like our heroes to go a little dark sometimes. So this gave us probably the most insight though into Moff Gideon's character because of what he says there. Like Moff Gideon, it's almost like he's knows Grogu. I got the sense that based on this conversation, this isn't the first time that they've been together.
Yeah, he's been around. Yeah, so you wonder how he it's almost like one of those Rogue One type things. It's like, okay, so how did the child get away from him? You know, how was the Death Star? How was the Death Star plan stolen? So it's almost like, well, how did he end up on his own?
Because just that line that he says, like, "Oh, you get so tired when you do this," you know.
Well, yeah. Well, it's like, no, you seem to have gotten better. You know, he didn't say since the last time I saw you, but he seems like you've improved. Like, so he's clearly saying that your Jedi powers have gotten better since the last time I saw you. And then, but it always makes you so sleepy. And it was almost kind of weird how he taunted him with the Darksaber there. Like,
yeah, it was. And I do like the Darksaber, but sometimes the graphics on it, like, I think that was the only time that, like, I was really taken out, like how it comes out or how it looked at one point in the scene. I was like, it doesn't, like, it looks more CG than real.
Right.
And I don't want that. I want it to always have a little bit of realism. And I know Fab probably wants that too, but I don't think it always quite sells as the realness.
I would imagine it's probably harder to do the Darksaber versus doing a lightsaber, because the lightsaber is really just a solid color, whereas the Darksaber actually has like a blade look to it, you know?
Yeah, and then the absence of color and, you know, that idea. Like, I mean, it's a bit tricky, but, you know, anyway, I praise the graphics team, and I also am critical of them. So
so that's pretty. Yeah, then, you know, basically radio in to say we have our donor. So I'm sure we're going to get a mix in these next two episodes of Prison Break / you know, what are they doing with Baby Yoda? Then maybe a training montage followed up by our final battle. Maybe. Like, now, do you think Gideon dies in this episode? Not this episode, but the last episode.
Season.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Because I do kind of wonder, like, how long we'll get Gideon. I like that the show has been brazen enough to kill off Quill, kill the Razor Crest. I think the killing of the Razor Crest, and let me just take this moment because we're already kind of like pushing an hour, to just throw in one more commercial break. Let's just do it. That way, Nick and I can talk a little bit about the impact of blowing up the Razor Crest, because I thought about this and how we're so accustomed to the Millennium Falcon. It's like bulletproof. It's like Superman. Like, you could throw everything at that thing and it would still live, right?
Piece of junk.
Yeah, I mean, it's the one thing that I'm shocked that J.J. Abrams didn't destroy. Zing! Yeah, because really, when you see the Razor Crest, you're just like, it's a character in the show, and we've lived in it, we've been a part of it, we've seen it through its worst times, and to see it just disintegrate in front of your eyes, you're like, what? You changed the rules, you know, like.
Well, I just thought, you know, it's a good old marketing team. I got to sell new toys now to the kids. New ship, new Legos.
If that was the case, do you think that they would have, like, told Legos, like, hey, by the way, you should really, like, make a lot of Slave Ones?
Well, they put out like I think 3 different Slave Ones for Lego in the last probably 3 years.
There has been one recently too that was out. I think it was like 130. It was fairly like.
Well, you have the throwback. You have the throwback one. You have the big one from the collector series, and then you also have a smaller one that came with the Bespin City set. So, you've had several ones.
Well, my son's still getting the Razor Crest for Christmas, so
nice. Yeah. It's a difficult one to find right now. You can probably get it on Amazon, but Lego, it's all gone. It's sold out.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I was like, we need to get this order in pretty soon, because with the popularity of the show and Legos. So, but anyway, toy talk aside, I just felt that it was really shocking because of like that it is a character. I think a lot of Star Wars fans, as well as like viewers of the show, we look at a ship and it's kind of like the home.
Yeah.
So when you see like a home like disappear, you're like, wait, what? Like
it's the constant.
It is. It is a constant. It is a constant. It's like it would be like in season 2 of Lost if they just moved the island and disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, it's not season.
Oh yeah, that was later. Yeah, gotcha.
But it melted it in front of your eyes with a volcano, maybe. which we never saw erupt. Yeah, go ahead.
One last thing, because we didn't really we talked about it earlier in the episode, in this episode, who the potential, if we do see another Jedi, who could it be?
Okay, so let's go through this. We got Luke. We already talked about. You and I are big fans of Ezra. If Ezra shows up, we would be totally peachy keen happy. What about Mace Windu?
That was going to be my twist. That's the ultimate, because you know that Samuel Jackson's still kicking around. He would happily do it. He never turns down a paycheck or a role.
Employed by Marvel and Disney.
And Disney, yeah. So, he would do it. I don't know how I would feel about it, because it's like, sometimes I just let characters die. If everyone can come back, then what's the point?
I'm with you on there. The one thing and the one way that they could make it work and sell me, because I've never really enjoyed Mace Windu as a character.
Yeah.
Let's face it, he is the dad that says no.
Yeah. And he's arrogant.
He's arrogant, and then there's other problems with Mace Windu. So this would be interesting because Boba Fett has a vendetta against Mace Windu.
Right. Oh,
and that would be an interesting thing, because if Mace Windu is the one that shows up to train Baby Yoda and Boba Fett's right there, all of a sudden you have this cocktail for an explosion to happen. This is fire meat.
So interesting.
Yeah, right? On one hand, I am totally Mace Windu is the least the one that but then when you bring in
want it. Yeah.
But you bring in the Boba Fett, you're like, that could work.
Because exactly. What if you had a few episodes there where really the Mandalorian and Boba are working together, they're showing each other different tricks, and Boba's really giving all this jewels of wisdom and training, and then all of a sudden Mace Windu shows up. He's the Jedi who responds to the call, and and Mando's all happy about it, yes, a Jedi, and it's hold on, Mandalorian, and it's and it's and all of a sudden he hits him with the flamethrower or something, it could go anywhere, and it could even be the Yoko Ono, he's breaking up the band to the point where Mando doesn't know who to choose, and Boba was just I'm going to go my way, and we're done. The relationship is done.
Right,
it's over.
Right. If you go with this man, you're dead to me.
Yeah.
Because at this point, he's built up that respect, and there's a little bit of synergy going on there. So that is the one aspect of Mace Windu showing up that I'm actually excited about.
Man, here I was gonna be oh man, Quinlan Voss would be cool. Then I'm no, never mind now.
So the other one that comes up is Kyle Katarn, because he would be the Jedi that would be associated with the Dark Troopers.
You could make him
storyline specifically, right?
Yeah, you'd have to make him canon again, which they've made the Dark Troopers canon. You could do him. I'm just curious though how they would want to. Dark Troopers are one thing, for people who are not, but this Jedi. That Jedi in particular, people wouldn't know who they were. Same as if you did Quinlan Voss or Barriss Offee. If you brought those Jedi who really aren't in the movies, but we could potentially still be alive. You're not, I think a lot of people are well, who are these people? Kind of like people who don't know Ahsoka, but who the heck is Ahsoka?
So this is where you also kind of run into some issues with the video game characters. So Kyle Katarn being one that was birthed in a video game, but also Cal. Cal
Kistinis. I don't know how to.
You said
it, not me. You're just setting me up. And then that actor, actually they did the capture for him, and he looks in the video game exactly how he looks in real life. So you could easily bring that actor, because Shameless, which is the show he's been on for 11 seasons now, is ending. It's already over. I mean, the last season's airing right now. You could easily bring him in right now and have him be the Jedi in a couple episodes. Because I'll take Grogu.
Yeah, it would be interesting because I think if you go with a Jedi that's a little lesser known.
Mm-hmm.
You can set up the storyline of Grogu training with this person and then not getting along as well.
Right.
That they're I cannot train him. Like he's too this, he's too that, like, whatever the case may be, or maybe I don't know, because Jedi by nature are somewhat pure, peaceful. They don't provide a lot of dynamic for your storyline, but unless they come with baggage, and I think that's why we both were like, oh yeah, Mace Windu's got a lot of baggage.
You killed my father.
Yeah, but like setting up certain characters though that would have that dynamic of like, okay, what if you brought in, and this is a wild card here because I haven't seen this name come up on anything, but Sabath from Heir to the Empire.
Oh, okay.
I think
that would be a real deep reach.
It would be a deep reach, but it would connect to Thrawn.
Yeah, true. Very true.
And the idea of clones.
What if it's the librarian?
She died.
Oh, did she die? That's right, she did in the comic. That's right. Yeah.
In a very cool way.
In a very cool way, yeah.
It's still, wanting to read more about the Darth Vader comics, still probably some of my favorite that Marvel has done. Yeah. So, and her sequence and her storyline in the Darth Vader story is really cool. So, Yaddle shows up.
Yaddle, yeah. She's already old pretty much then.
Yeah. It have to be a long time, but Yaddle's just like, oh, there you are. I gave you
where you been? Where you been?
You wandered off. Yeah, I don't know. Other than some of the ones that we kind of mentioned there, I think those are some of the big ones that I've seen thrown around, specifically the Cal, the Luke, the Ezra. I think those are like the top three hits.
Yeah, and then some people are talking about Force Ghosts, but I don't see that. Like what if it was Obi-Wan's Force Ghost? What if it was Yoda? What if it was
which we've never established a non-Force user seeing a Force Ghost.
Right.
So that's a law in Star Wars that hasn't been broken. Only Force sensitive people see them. So
that's one of the things I always liked in Empire Strikes Back, and that's one of the reasons why I like, because some people the rumors were going around that they wanted the ending of Rise of Skywalker to be like all the Force Ghost Jedi, versus all the Sith. And I was like, I kind of don't like that. I was like, even though I think it'd be a cool shot. But I always respected what Obi-Wan said about how if you choose to face Vader, you'll do it alone. I cannot interfere. Mm-hmm. And it's something, about the living versus the non-living. It's like you can influence, but you cannot directly, interfere with the path of human history or whatever. It's just
I'm trying to remember if it's in the Worlds Between Worlds episode in Rebels. I know it's in Rebels somewhere, but Yoda's explaining to like Ezra about Force Ghosts. I want to say, like, is it in that?
Maybe I don't know. I need to. I only watched Rebels, the one time through. I need to watch it again. But
yeah, I mean, you could always just jump in with season 3 and work your way forward, or at the very end of season 2 if you want. I mean, there's some really cool stuff in season 2 as well, but it really starts to I think gel in those last 2 seasons. But there's something that they're talking about. I think a certain Jedi and the fact that it's almost kind of like they will appear as long as they are needed, or they appear when it's their time or something like that. Almost kind of like, and it's not explained this way, but I think of it as ripples, in a pebble, like the life dies, it's a pebble that's dropped in water, and the ripples extend out. They can extend out for a while, and even kind of grow deeper even as they get further from that first moment. But they only last for so long, and they only appear at certain times and places, So anyway, that's my thought on the Force Ghost thing. I'm kind of with you. It's like a little bit goes a long way. Like you don't want too many Force Ghosts. Like it just, I don't know. Even some of what the sequel trilogy did with Force Ghosts, I was like, you're really, really kind of pushing the boundaries of what I consider Force Ghosts to be able to do.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. And I had read actually, I think 2 days ago, where Ryan was it
Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was thinking, is it Johnson? Is it the common name Johnson? Okay, yeah, but Ryan Johnson, yeah, he actually considered bringing in Hayden Christensen instead of Yoda.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they decided not to do that.
Yeah,
but we've also talked about how Ryan Johnson tried to put everything he possibly could into one movie.
Right.
So, it's hard to fault him as an artist. I get it, but as a Star Wars fan, sometimes a little bit of editing would have gone a long way. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, one last going to the Kenobi series, which starts shooting pretty soon for everyone out there.
But not in Boston. That was a fake rumor.
Was it? Oh.
Yeah, it's sad. So
I know Chris will be crushed. Do you think, and would you like to see them reenact the Rebels scene?
Oh, right. So slight spoilers, I guess, for Rebels. But there's a duel between Maul and Kenobi that occurs, and there's part of me that would love to see that, because even if it's acted out live, it would be really powerful, and I would like it if it would explain or set up or finish that character's story. Like if it continues Maul's story, if it explains Maul's story, if it sets up something else for Maul, if we see the boots walking in the desert, like picking up Maul, like, okay, then we know he's alive somewhere again. Whatever they want to do to either, and as long as it connects seamlessly into the story that they're trying to tell with Kenobi, if they're going for a small window, and they're saying this is a window in Kenobi's life where he had to go off world and do this one thing, or he had to stand up to these invaders, and that timeline doesn't line up with when Ezra visits him, then don't force it in there, and I think that's the bigger question is how is that author, or not author, but the writer and the director going to approach those signposts, is this Kenobi through the years? Or is it just like a moment, because they've talked about it being a mini series, which gives me the idea or the impression that it's just okay, we're
yeah, that's what I'm curious about too, is is it going to be 6 episodes, and then each episode, let's say 10 years before the Battle of Yavin, 5 years before the Battle of Yavin, is it just going to skip, time, or is it just going to be this is a 1 month in the life of Ben Kenobi?
Right. My guess is that it's going to be a 1 month in the life of Kenobi. It's going to be a storyline, because I think there's a part of them that they're well, if this is successful,
oh right.
By the way, why wouldn't it be successful? But okay, if they're still testing the waters and they're saying okay, we're going to do this one mini series story about Kenobi and his life in this time period, and it is successful, then we could always come back in a couple of years and do another Kenobi story.
It's crazy to me to think that it's been 15 years since Ewan McGregor has been in that role. Yeah. And to me, it still feels like it was yesterday. But I'm wow, it's been 15 years.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if they also are able to pull in Hayden Christensen on some level. I don't know exactly how or why we would see his face, because that to me is the only reason why you'd have Hayden Christensen, is if we're seeing his face. Otherwise, it's Vader.
I can't see Hayden Christensen being in the Obi-Wan series. But,
right. That's what I mean. Unless it's a flashback that they've both aged so much.
Or just audio. Him thinking back. But
yeah, or looking at a hologram or something like that. I can't imagine him being a big part of that. I would like to know. I mean, and again, we talked about the timeline of Kenobi. If they do bring in Maul at all, let's say it's even before this duel, if they bring in the Maul storyline, I would like to just see it continue or flesh out more of what was happening with the whole Red. What was it? What was their what was his syndicate? that he called himself? The
Red Dawn.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was Red Dawn, but
Crimson Dawn.
Crimson Dawn, that's what it is. I'm getting Dawn of the Jedi, Crimson Dawn, Red Dawn, Red Tide, all mixed together.
Wolverines.
Well, before we get on too long, because you and I, we could go probably another like 40 minutes just talking Star Wars. Like, this is our jam. And,
yeah.
We don't have anybody else to stop us.
Oh.
For anybody that's keeping track of the IMDb numbers that I mention each week on this show, the Tragedy ranked in at 9.4, which slightly under the Jedi at 9.6. So back to back, solid top tier episodes. And this season, I feel like, has improved on all things that we complained about from season 1. Like,
absolutely,
I just feel so like it's so awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm like, can we just keep this bicycle going? Like, I don't care how many seasons. I know you're more of like less seasons is more. Yeah, I'm fine about that. I don't want it to go on too long, but
I just think any show shouldn't last longer than 6 seasons. Period. I think, you need to have a story from the time you write your very first script of like where you want to take this character, and then that's be it. And I think The Mandalorian is just that kind of very standalone, one kind of story, because like you run into the dangers of that, of like, oh, does it become all of a sudden The Mandalorian and the Boba Fett show, or does it become all these side things that and you get away from the whole point is that it's about The Mandalorian.
I mean, I think as long as we're kind of just like winding through all of these other people and instances and planets, that it should stay strong. I'm looking for that moment where the Mandalorian is basically like injured, incapacitated, like he's knocked out, his body's laying there. Mm-hmm. Grogu is the only person left,
right, and
summons some kind of thing, whether it's and basically defends his dad. Like I want to see him levitating the black the dark saber, with his mind, and slicing through like troops.
You reminded me of I'll give Ralph props for this one, but I beat him to it as soon as he started to say it. I knew exactly what he was thinking. This is the only thing from the other podcast that I've talked about on this one, is that the two things we saw Mando pick up were the spear
mm-hmm.
and the gear shifter ball.
Yeah.
And you just talking about that could happen as well. You could see Baby Yoda totally heal Mando,
mm-hmm.
in the last episode. But to a darker twist, what if Mando's laying there on the ground, but he's not like stabbed or not wounded or anything,
mm-hmm.
and Baby Yoda sees the ball in his belt and then force pulls the ball through Moff Gideon's body into his hand. Like, I know that would be really freaking dark.
Yeah,
it would be cool too at the same time. Like, you wouldn't have to actually show the ball like go through him, like just see him go, like, and then all of a sudden, like you see him drop, and the Baby Yoda's got like a bloody steel ball in his hand, like, oh my gosh, like.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's a way that they can make this happen. So stay tuned, season 3. So, I do think season 3, like they have to be like casting for Thrawn at this point.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I would not expect Thrawn to show up in this season. But
no.
Season 3 though.
I think season 3. Yeah, we might see him in season 3.
I feel
though the same way. Like if they need to have their ducks in a row though. Like, so what spinoffs are they going to do? What movies are they going to do? If they are going to do an Ahsoka Tano movie, then you need to automatically already have that person cast for a possible few cameos in The Mandalorian, as well as cast for the movie. So they need to have everything lined up so you can have the same actors.
Yeah, I guess that's why I've been kind of like, let's just cast the Luke and Leia and Han like for this, And I mean, if they want to use the actor that played Han Solo, I'm blanking on his name, in Solo, and just age makeup or whatever, him. I mean, it's never going to look like Harrison Ford, but we have to, hell, we've had to recast all of these characters in lots of different things, from cartoons to, like from different generations of movies. I mean,
it's just so hard to do. I mean, I know actors, it is an art form, but to find 3 people age appropriate who could actually do Leia, Luke, and Han.
Oh, I know. It
would be so hard. And can you imagine recasting Billy D. Williams? Nobody can be Billy D. Williams. No one's that smooth. No one can do that. So, actually, they already did, didn't they?
Yeah, so they did. And that was a good casting.
And he did a very good job. That's true. I don't know why I'm forgetting that. Yeah, he did. Donald Glover did a great job. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned, because 30 years from now, they're going to remake A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back. All new cast. They're going to add like specials and stuff. And
our entire generation will have to be dead in order for that to happen, because the riots would just be like, you can't remake those movies.
All right. Before we head into an even longer episode, and I got to throw in more commercial breaks, we're going to go ahead and end this now. Thank you for joining us this long. If you have any feedback, please send it to theforceswelldone@gmail.com. Rate and review us on iTunes. We would really appreciate that. We'll be back next week for the next Mandalorian episode, of course. There are certain patrons that make this show possible. You can go over to jayandjack.com and click on the patron link there. Help this show out. And some patrons that make this show possible. Always Star Wars themed. I try to make it related to this episode, of course. We have Tech from Tython, Eckhart Richter's Razor Explosion, Ed atop the Seeing Stone, Meditation Maggie, Django Joanne, and Gaffy Stick Greg. Thanks for doing what you do. I feel like those were better than what I do on the RCAD. If you enjoyed Nick and I,
you got a G. So
I know, right? There's not many G Star Wars names in there. So, but anyway, thanks for joining us. This was a great show, right?
It's a good show. Yeah.
1 in a million.